Long-term travel housing, city living versus country living. At first glance, one looks quite a bit cheaper. But is it? Let's break it down. Today I prepared for you a case study where we'll examine the costs and logistics of both. A little bit of housekeeping and some ground rules. This is not meant to be financial advice. This is for illustrative purposes only, and I do not endorse any particular platform, vendor, or provider. First of all, Sweden was just chosen at random to be my case country. Second of all, I kept the comparisons equal between the city living and the country living, both for 30 days, both were filtered the same way. Wash machine, kitchen, and good internet. Also, for this case study, we're going to assume that you will be equally happy in the city as you will in the country. I'm not taking into consideration personal preferences. And we're going to make the assumption that grocery prices are approximately the same in both locations. However, in rural locations, delivery apps are probably going to be much less or non-existent, and the types of groceries and the availability will differ between the two places. We're going to assume that your flight arrives at a major city. So in this case, we picked Stockholm. And if you look at Stockholm prices, city prices, you'll see a variety, but let's go with 2,200. So you see 2,200 and up, and you think that might be a little high for your budget. Let's say you don't care where you go in Sweden, you just want to go to Sweden. So you zoom out your search to include all of Sweden because you're looking for a great deal. So then you start to look at rural areas and you see some deals like this, where housing looks to be about $600 a month. That is a huge cost savings, right? So you arrive in Stockholm, and if you're going to stay there in Stockholm, you figure out how to get a taxi or ride share to your accommodation. We're not going to include that price. But if you arrive in Sweden and you're going to Bruntorp or another rural location, a lot of times you cannot make it work where your flight arrives here and you get the bus or the train out. You just can't really line that timing up, and there's a lot of risks to that. So next you'll have to find a hotel so that you can arrange for getting on the bus or the train the next day. I looked up hotel prices and you can more or less peg $140. Now if you're going the rural route, you have to get from Stockholm to your accommodation. And let's say you're trying to be as cost effective as you possibly can. So you look for trains and buses. I tried to find a train or a bus that would go to Bruntorp, and to tell you the truth, it was quite a challenge. I couldn't find really any straightforward information, and I think there would have to be a transfer involved, and I think as close as I could get would be about 12 kilometers away, something like that. So then I decided to switch gears and keep going. I looked at, okay, well, what would be train or bus fare from Stockholm to Gothenburg, which is a larger city where you can find timetables and it's relatively close. Train and bus fare from Stockholm to Gothenburg would run you about $25 to $50. As a side note, when I was looking up trains, you can only take one suitcase limited to 40 pounds and a backpack. If you arrived on the plane and were staying in Stockholm, you could get your taxi no matter what your luggage is and get to your accommodation. So now you've arrived at Gothenburg and you're just going to magically teleport yourself to Bruntorp an hour away. We won't even get into that. Let's just say that that happens. So you magically get to Bruntorp and then you arrive at your accommodation, and maybe you didn't read the reviews very well, or maybe you didn't calculate exactly where you were in relation to other things. And then you find out that the nearest grocery store is a 7-kilometer walk one way. Just imagine you're going to get your weekly groceries, you have to walk 7 kilometers to get there. And then, because you don't want to go that often you buy a lot of stuff, now you have to haul your major pack back 7 kilometers back to your accommodation. Well, we know that it doesn't magically happen, and so at this point maybe you're getting a little harried and you say to yourself, you know, I think I'll just rent a car. That'll be really easy and that'll help me get around. A quick search for looking up car rentals will quickly show you that a month of car rental will run you about $1,000, if not more. A lot of times what you find on the internet at first glance gives you one number, and it's very often higher than that. But let's call it $1,000. So now let's add that $1,000 onto the $600 for the accommodation, the $140 for the hotel, $1,000 for car rental. After that, when you're all done with your stay, you're going to have a similar problem with logistics as you did when you first arrived. It's not very feasible, especially if you're taking a train or a bus back. It's not feasible to just arrive in the city, take your car back, or arrive at the train station and switch over to the airport and make your flight. So I would say it makes good sense if you plan on having a hotel when you're departing as well. So there's another $140. So let's just add these up and see how the chips fall. If you stayed in Stockholm and you went with a $2,200 city location, more or less, that's your total, $2,200. If you stay in Bruntorp or another rural location, you have $600 for housing, $140 for your first hotel night, $1,000 at least for car rental, $140 for your second hotel upon departure. That equals up to $1,880. So at first glance, when you look at the rural price of $600, that looks like a clear win over the city price of $2,200. But when you factor in, I would say, very, very conservative extra hidden costs that you'll incur, $880 to $2,200 is not a big difference, and I wouldn't put that in a clear win category, especially if you factor in other costs or if you take your time and your hassle factor into consideration. So you have to kind of know yourself, know what your limitations are, and know what you want to get out of the experience. Rural could mean not very good ability to get to a doctor or a hospital, or might be limited on restaurants, might be far away from a grocery store. And if you have car rental, you're also going to have insurance and gas. But if you stay in the city, you're also going to have ride share, museum entrance fees. You might eat out more because there's more to choose from, which could drive up the price. And at the end of the day, you have to kind of know yourself. Would I be happy in this situation, out in the country, enjoying nature, going hiking? Or would I be happier in the city with more hustle and bustle, more nightlife, more to do, or at least other things to do? So those are questions that I can't answer. You have to answer yourself. But I'm just breaking down the housing and the logistics costs. So I'd personally say that this is kind of a wash. There isn't really a clear-cut winner with your budget when you take all the things into consideration. What would you do? What do you think your ideal location would be? Seeing as it kind of shakes out to the same monetarily, would you prefer to be in the country, have a car, go hiking, be footloose and fancy-free, or would you rather be in the city and be closer to more hustle and bustle and nightlife? I'm curious which one you would choose. Leave a comment down below, or let me know if you've tried both and which one you prefer. Thanks for joining us. If you're enjoying this content, please give us a like. Subscribe to our channel if you want more tips and tricks on slow travel and long-term travel. Stay tuned for more content like this, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.